Freezer, and today I got for you How to Choose a Bow, Part 3, String Selection. So you may be thinking to yourself, why does string selection matter? I'll buy a bow, it's got a string on it, right? Well, you're not wrong. But here's a little bit about string selection for you. So if you buy a new bow, it's going to have a factory strings and cables on it, or a string and cable depending on a dual cam versus a single cam bow. Anyways, there's nothing wrong with factory strings. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. Some bow companies have some very good ones on them. And I've shot some factory strings before and shot them decent. I just think there are better manufacturers out there than the factory strings and cables that come with a bow. And here's why. So all those strings are mass produced, right? Company orders them all. Mostly all the same colors. You're going to run into a little more string stretch, timing problems, peep sight twist, and you can't get it in the color you want it. It kind of matters to me somewhat. Hey, if you're not going to know what you're doing, at least look good. You know, kind of color coordinate your bow. That's what I did here. I have tan riser, olive green limbs, so I went with a tan string, green serving. This set of strings and cables is made by Ronnie Ralston, Double R Bow Strings. He's out there near the West Virginia border. Great guy. I've been shooting his strings for like 6 years now. Never had any issues with him. You can find him on Facebook. He'll message you back, make you whatever you want, whatever you want, he will get it for you. So let's talk a little bit more about strings and cables. So even if you buy a new bow, right, and it's a couple years down the road, you should replace your strings and cables. They will not last forever, especially if you shoot your bow a lot. And I mean a lot by meaning, you should practice, once or twice a week, starting through the summer months, leading up into the hunting season. After 2, maybe 3 years, you're gonna start running into some problems. Like all of a sudden, your bow isn't gonna be the right poundage, or it's just not gonna be shooting right. And that's because your strings and cables have stretched. It's time to get a new set. And if you're buying a used bow, you definitely want to ask the person you're buying it from, hey, when's the last time the strings and cables were changed on this thing? And who made them? It's anywhere from you can spend anywhere from $60 to $100 and some dollars, on a good set of strings and cables. Many manufacturers out there. Not saying A is better than B or B is better than B. Everybody has their own opinion. Unfortunately, a lot of times with strings and cables, you kind of got to buy a set to figure it out for yourself. So talking about strings and cables. If you're going to mess with strings and cables, you got to have a bow press. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no way to mess around with them without having a bow press. This bow press is homemade. I got it made fairly inexpensively. If you're going to buy one, you're going to spend at least $200-300 for kind of like a bottom end one. You can get some really fancy ones that are all electric and have all kinds of cool options. Hey, they're great. I'm not spending that much money on one. This one does what I need it to do, and I can do whatever I want. It may take me a little longer because I have to hand crank it versus pressing a button. Like a lot of shops are going to have an electric one, a nice one. Like I said in part 1 and part 2, it's good to know a good shop that'll do some work for you. Hey, if you're an hour, 2 hours away from the nearest shop, the investment in a bow press may be worthwhile for you, because let's say your peep sight's twisting a little bit, and you just got to put like a half twist in your string. Well, now you got to drive 2 hours to a bow shop to accomplish that. So it's up to you. If you want to put the investment in a bow press, I recommend it, because you're going to be able to kind of play with things a little more on your own, and get to know your bow more. And if you're going to use a bow press by yourself at home, or even at a shop there, you know, if you're changing out your strings and cables. Here's what I recommend. Everybody has a cell phone that has a camera and is able to take video. Use that feature. Before you even start, you know, take yourself a little video or pictures of each cam and how all the strings and cables are routed and stuff like that through here. Because if you just press this bow and take everything off, and you got your new set in front of you, and you're like, okay, I think this went this way, but trust me, I've been there before. Do yourself a favor. Take some pictures and take some video of it so you can kind of rewind and look and be like, oh, okay, that goes this way. Because if you route something the wrong way, you could do damage to your bow or yourself when you unpress it and, you know, attempt to draw it back. Don't do that. Just take a video or some pictures, make sure it's the right way. So that brings us into this. Now is the time when you want to get yourself a notebook. Very inexpensive. You can buy like $2 ones, whatever one you want. And start taking notes. I've had this notebook's been in my bow case for a long time. It's got a lot of notes in it. And you may think, well, why do I need to take notes? So when you start working with a bow, right? In part 1 and part 2, we talked a little about, you know, brace height and axle to axle, and there's factory specs. Your bow is meant to be at the factory spec, like a 33-inch axle to axle or a 6.5-inch brace height. It's meant to be there. You want to write down and make sure you're at that. So in further shooting, if something starts to not feel right, you can go back and take some measurements, go back to your notes, and be like, oh, okay, well, my axle to axle's off, my brace height's off. I need to, you know, twist up my string or twist up my cables a little bit. That way you can go back and you have notes. And that's just good for doing everything. If you start messing with the bow, we get more into tuning, I'll show you a bunch of different things. But you want to write down everything you do. So if you start getting to a point where you're lost, you're like, man, this thing is all screwed up. It was shooting better before I started messing with it. Well, if you've written everything down, you can flip back and be like, okay, I had that. Retrace your steps, set everything back to where you were, and start from square one. That's why you should have a notebook. Keep it in your bow case because it doesn't do you any good if it's at home or in your garage and it's not with you when you're at the range trying to make some adjustments. I hope that makes sense for you. Alright, so we talked about some strings and cables. And, you know, whether you're shooting the factory ones, whether you're going to get some custom ones made. If you want to mess with it yourself, you know, you should probably shoot a little video of how it is. You definitely need a bow press, everything like that. So, we've gone over how to choose a bow, how to choose your strings and cables. So now, the next thing I'm going to do, if I'm setting up this bow, I have a new bow in my hands, right? New to you. And I've got either factory strings and cables, or I have some new stuff I put on. The first thing I'm going to do before I move into anything else is I'm going to check the timing of my bow. And here's what I mean by the timing of my bow. You can see how an electric one would be a lot easier. Alright, so on your bow, right? You're going to have draw stops. So these are cable stops, meaning when this cam rotates around, this is going to stop on the cable. And that's going to stop me at full draw. Some bows also have what they call limb stops, where this is going to come around and stop on your limb. Not saying one is any better than the other. This one has cable stops. So when I talk about timing, right? So we got two cams, exactly the same, top and bottom. Right? They have to roll over at the same time when you draw your bow back, or one cam is going to be ahead of the other one or behind the other one, and it's going to cause your arrow to do funky things. Think about, you know, the arrow travel. You want that level. If this cam's ahead of this cam, you know, one's jerking it this way, one's jerking it this way, and it's just not going to work out well for you. So what you want to do is, you can do it by feel. You can draw your bow back, kind of look at it, be like, yeah, okay, all right, we're looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. So I know getting this bow from Sean, it was going to be right. What I can do is I have an eye hook in the ceiling up here, and you can pull the bow down and get a real good look. Real slow, kind of pulling it down, looking when one hits before the other. If you need to make some adjustments, say again, if you're at a shop, they'd be more than happy to help you out with that. If you're at home, you have your own bow press, you can sit there and play with your cables and get your cams, what they call, in time. Now if you're a YouTuber and watch a bunch of other videos, you may see some people want some bows, like, oh, I want this cam a little ahead of this cam. Nah, I don't play with that. I want mine even. It'll save you some headaches. It's something some people don't think about. But that's the first thing I'm going to do after I put a string on a bow. Before I put a rest, before I put a peep sight, before I put a D-loop on there. And you may be thinking, well, why does he already have that stuff on there? I already told you, I got this bow sent to me, mostly set up. But I'm going to go back over these things with you because I wanted to share some of the knowledge I have with bows so you can do this on your own. So there we have it. String selection, whether it's factory or custom, used bow if you want to get some new sets of strings and cables. I change mine every year because I shoot a lot. You can get by with a couple years, maybe even 3 years. Don't go beyond that. Just don't do it to yourself. You're going to start running into problems. How you can help yourself extend the life of your string and cables is string wax. Comes in lots of different forms. So this is like just some standard boning string wax. I don't use it on my strings, I use it for other things. This stuff here is about the best stuff that I've found. It's little blue pads on there. And take the pad, you run it up and down your strings and cables real quick. You'll feel it heat up. Do that. I don't know. Depends on how much you shoot. But maybe once a month is probably good. If you see your strings, you'll see them, because this is a fibrous material. You'll see it start to fray a little bit. It just looks dry. Put some wax on there. It will greatly extend the life of your string. Because if you bust a strand, you're done. You got to replace your strings and cables. So put some wax on them. Take care of your investment. Get in the outdoors. Take a kid in the outdoors. Take a disabled vet in the outdoors. Hey, I don't care who it is. Take somebody outdoors. Enjoy God's creation. Thank a first responder. Thank some law enforcement officers with all this COVID stuff going on around. Everybody is working very hard to get this country back to where it needs to be. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit the little bell down there so you know when we post more videos. And check us out on Facebook and Instagram for all our further adventures. Stay safe. God bless.